It's just 3 years that I'm doing it, and it's like I still feel like I'm quite young in this kind of space. There's a lot of things I never thought about as a player. As a player, you're not, as a captain, you're thinking about tactic, strategy, you're thinking about other players, you're thinking about 15 other guys, you're thinking about it, but not to the level and depth as you have to do as a coach. You don't have that pressure of performing. I'm not thinking about scoring runs or taking wickets. So, your mind and energy is diverted to other things. And so you're learning a lot more in those areas, which things that maybe I didn't necessarily think about a lot as a player, when I was playing. So for me, I think it's really been a really good learning and educative process. I learn things all the time. I learn things and you make mistakes all the time, and then you say, that was a mistake. I could have, maybe this is how we could have approached it. This is how we could have done things slightly differently. And so it's interesting for me, how this process is a journey, and you're always learning from the mistakes you make, or I won't say mistakes, but the lessons that you learn. I'm just like a good example. I mean, for me, it was actually the Under-19 World Cup final. Because when I look back at that Under-19 World Cup final, and we lost the final to the West Indies, we lost a close game to the West Indies, and if I were to look back and say, what? Forget the result. I'm not interested in we won, we lost, and what happened there is different. But what is it what we could have done differently, or what is it we should have done differently? I think if you look back, we got beaten by a team that in the subcontinent that bowled 46 overs of fast bowling to us. And a lot of our preparation and a lot of my thinking, around that tournament and leading into the tournament was around the fact that it's in the subcontinent. There's going to be a lot of spin. There's going to be a lot of thing. Obviously we were a bit short on time, and so we were hurriedly organizing tournaments. We organized a tournament in Sri Lanka. We organized a tournament in Calcutta, and we talked and spoke a lot about playing spin, and how do you play spin, and how do you counter spin, and how that's going to be a factor. And from the left field, a team beat you that bowled 46 overs of medium pace. So that's really it's such an exciting. So it's an exciting learning for me. Something that you take into the next thing. It's not that I'm saying that we could have done anything differently because maybe we didn't have the time, but it's just a lesson for me that the next times that sometimes you just can't. We go and say, this tournament is going to be won in subcontinent. There's a lot of preconceived thinking that happens at times, and you can always be beaten by someone who comes in from the left field or does something very different. I mean, the matches started at 9 o'clock and it seemed all over the place. It was really not. It did become subcontinental conditions later on. So it's just interesting. So I just go back to the point that you're learning all the time, and you just have to, sort of figure out these things and pick up these things. Anything that comes back to you has to be weighed with a lot of consideration, not only in terms of whether you feel you want to do it or you feel that, but also the fact that the time that is involved in doing a lot of these things, what does it entail, what does it require, can you devote the time and energy? I mean, anything that you would want to do, you would want to ensure that you are completely 100% focused on it. Like I said, I'm not worried about so much whether the results come or not, but can you give that level of commitment, and can you give that level of time to doing anything? And it's just like cricket. I mean, if I wanted to become a really good batsman or a good cricketer, I recognize that the time, sacrifice, devotion, whatever required to get it done, and what sacrifices I would have to make for it. So any decision that I guess I had to make at this stage in my life has to be weighed whether I have the bandwidth to be able to do all of these things. It's about picking a right balance. It's picking the right team, the right balance of players. It's about ensuring that the right people are there for the right roles. It's about, and I think one of the things that we go through a lot is we go through processes to do these things, to pick specific players. There's a lot of thought that goes into these things, and now being involved over the years, IPL teams now in general, and put in a lot of thought into these things. It's not just randomly happening. and sometimes and you'll not get everyone right. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, and especially in an auction scenario and those kind of things, there's a lot happening, and you don't sometimes get everything right. But at least here, I think the and my philosophy has always been to stick with to ensure that you put in a lot of thought and process into what goes in, and you trust that process, and you keep doing that over and over again, and you get it right sometimes, you won't get it right other times, and just it's a good example by the side is that I know there was quite a bit of criticism around the fact that, okay, why did Delhi pay so much for Carlos Braithwaite, and who is he, right? But and I just use that example. I'm not using that as a this thing, but and I'm not saying that it was an unjustified criticism at that stage. But the fact is that there are teams that go through a process. They understand these things. They are looking into it a lot more than a lot of people give them credit for.